All right. Thank you so much. We're going to do tag team through the 45 minutes, which I'm very excited about. Fist bump. Okay. Um, Summer, thank you so much for asking us. This is so cool. We love any chance we can get to talk recovery, and I see some new friends on here and some old friends. And I love when you said you get solution based speakers. That's kind of code word for me for people working out of the big book. So I'm excited for that. I will tell everybody, I don't know how it's going to go. We got the cat here. She likes to meow. And we got the kids in the other room. We're going to see if they don't fight for 45 minutes. We'll see how that goes. Yeah. So whoever's not talking, the other one might get up and go break up the wrestling match in the family room at any given time. So that's just a little heads up. But my name is Ryan Milne. I'm a recovered alcoholic. Um, Sober since November 13th, 2006. My home group, it's both of our home groups, is Primary Purpose Group Webster. We meet on Zoom Sunday mornings, 9:30 a.m. Eastern. Um, Maybe somebody, fellow home group member, will get those numbers in the chat before the meeting's over there. We studied the book line by line, and it's fascinating. It's fun. Um, I love it. I love it. So, we're tasked today to talk on the 10th step, which is a fun one to talk on, and I'm going to share my, current present understanding of the 10th step, or how I practice the 10th step right now. I will say for years, over a decade, I had a very one way of looking at the 10th step. I heard somebody said once, continue to take personal inventory, and when we were wrong, probably admitted it. And that was kind of how I looked at it. And I will say my understanding has changed even in the last few weeks or a month or so. And honestly, if I did this talk a month from now, my understanding might be different again. So this is just like kind of a snapshot of where I'm at with the 10th step for now. Seems like there's a lot of confusion about the difference between the 10th and 11th step in a lot of AA meetings. And, there doesn't need to be. Our program is very specific. It tells us very specifically. We'll go through, we're going to work out of the book tonight, and we'll go through, the very clear cut instructions on how to do a 10th step. And then when you flip the page, it's, now we're at step 11, and it gives us very specific instructions. When we retire at night, it tells us what to do. Upon awakening, tells us what to do. So there seems to be all this confusion, but there doesn't need to be. The 10th step is basically, we'll get into it, but it's basically the spot check inventory, something that I'm doing throughout the day. I explain the 10th and 11th step kind of like, I think of it like a sandwich. The day starts and ends with the 11th step, and the 10th step is in the middle all day long, when I'm walking around living life. I heard someone say, this is not original, but I love this. They said, basically, if I'm standing in the middle of the street and there's a tractor trailer barreling down on me, it's not time to sit there and inventory what's going on. It's time to dive out of the way. And diving out of the way is the 10th step. At night, I can review my conduct, and I can take a look and see what happened, why that happened, where was I at fault, where's my mistakes. I can look at all that stuff at night, but not in the moment. In the moment, I just got to dive out of the way when the truck's coming for me. Almost after the first and second step, and, I always kind of refer back to the third step before I talk about anything else, because, to me, our program, these pages, 60 to 63, it's such a shift in my thinking. It's such a shift in everything that I thought was true, before going through the program with a sponsor. I thought life was a certain way, and those 2 or 3 pages there, I mean, they shift everything for me, and they change it. So I kind of needed that mindset before I can go into inventory, steps 4 through 9. And, I kind of need that mindset in steps, 10, 11, and 12. I will say, 10, 11, and 12, I hear them referred to as the maintenance steps, and, whatever, I like to consider them growth steps, but I consider 10, 11, and 12 as basically, AA's relapse prevention plan. Okay. Because, it's, I'm not saying never, but it's very rare to find somebody practicing steps 10, 11, and 12 and relapsing. I'm not saying it's never happened. In fact, I have a friend who, was kind of doing 10, 11, and 12 and relapse. So he kind of called me out on it, whatever. So I'm not saying it's impossible, but for the most part. And when I have somebody I'm sponsoring or somebody that I'm friends with or anybody that goes back out and I talk to, I ask three questions usually. And it's basically like, when's the last time you called your sponsor for a 10 step? When did you stop praying? And how many people are you sponsoring? Because really, if we're doing those things, if we've done the action, if we've done had a real first step and second step experience, and we've made that real decision in the third step, and we've done the work 4 through 9, if we're doing those three things, Dr. Bob really called it, trust God, clean house, and help others. It really is that simple moving forward. That's not to say we don't have to do an annual or semi-annual house cleaning and go through, the steps again. That's fine, but 10, 11, and 12 is really, really where it's at. I like that idea, the relapse prevention plan. So I'll just talk real briefly here on the third step, just to explain my mindset and why I need to do this stuff so much. You know what I'm saying? Where it talks about, we're talking about the first requirement is that we be convinced that any life run on self-will can hardly be a success. On that basis, we are almost always in collision with something or somebody, even though our motives are good. So listen, all this stuff here, I always considered this stuff. When I was reading this, I thought, yeah, that was Ryan when he was drinking, but this is not Ryan anymore now that I'm a sober member of Alcoholics Anonymous. But if I look at it as this is my natural state, this is how I am, selfish and self-centered, then I'm relating to this stuff on a real life in the moment basis. You know what I'm saying? So even behind a good motive, I'm still always in collision with something or somebody. It talks about each person is like the actor who wants to run the whole show. And it talks, arranging the lights in the ballet, however they want it to be. And, really, I can look at my life in and out, drunk and sober. I can look at my life and see how I do this and continue to do this. That's why, the steps are so beautiful, basically. They help me to quit running the show, get out of management. I'm not good at it. The choices I make for myself don't often prove to be the good ones. And, I always think if I get what I want, then I'll be happy. I always think that. And I think if I can arrange life to suit that, to have that happen, then I can finally feel some satisfaction or contentment or whatever. But it just doesn't work like that. And it's going on to talk about, if only my arrangements would stay put, if only if only people would do as I wish, the show would be great. And that's my mindset. And this tells me that's not the case. Everybody, including me, would be pleased. In trying to make these arrangements, I might sometimes be quite virtuous. I might be kind, considerate, patient, generous, even modest and self-sacrificing. So we call this the toolkit of self-will. Okay, toolkit. These are the tools that I use to get my way, to run the show. Okay. I can, if I think to get my way that being cool and friendly and, whatever, is going to work, I will go that route. Or to get my way, if I can be harsh, or what's the words they use here? Mean, egotistical, selfish, dishonest. If that's what it takes to get my way, that's what I do. That's my natural state. But what usually happens? The show doesn't come off very well. By the way, when somebody I sponsor will call me for a 10 step, that's usually one of the first things I'll say. Let me guess, the show didn't come off very well. And it's usually the case, then we can talk about it and find out what's going on with it. But on the next, and then I decide to exert myself more, still demanding as the case may be. I don't need to go through all this stuff here, but I just want to show that this is Ryan's natural mindset, basically. And on 62, it talks about selfishness, self-centeredness, that we think is the root of our troubles. And I'm driven by 100 forms of fear, self-delusion, self-seeking, and self-pity. Sounds like stuff we're going to be looking for in the 10 step. I step on the toes of my fellows and they retaliate. Sometimes they hurt me even without provocation, but we invariably find at some time in the past, we have made decisions based on self, which later placed us in a position to be hurt. So our troubles, we think, are basically of our own making. I got my little note in the column there says greatest promise in the book, because if my troubles are of your making, I'm in trouble. it's not going to be good because I can't change you. I can't fix you. But if the trouble is of my own making, then, I have a program for that. We have a program for that. So just in that mindset, that's what I like to talk about before I can talk about the 10th step, because I can easily, even having a sponsor, working the steps, sponsoring guys, all that stuff, I can easily slip back into that actor who's trying to run the whole show. Yep, she'll confirm it. That's a fact. So with that said, before I get right into the instructions here, I just want to finish with this last, so on bottom of 83 and 84, they got the 9 step promises, beautiful promises read at many AA meetings all over the world, absolute beautiful promises. And it talks about, are these extravagant promises? We think not. They are being fulfilled among us, sometimes quickly, sometimes slowly. They will always materialize if we work for them. Then the next line says, this thought brings us to step 10. So that's the thought. They will always materialize if we work for them. And that's the thought. It does take some willpower on my part. It does take some action on my part. There is a proper use of the will. God's going to make it happen, but I need to be disciplined and I need to do the work myself. I think I'm going to turn it over to you so you can get into this first paragraph here. I get all fired up. I'll talk. I'm going to share the time. Yeah.
I'm Risa Milne. I am a recovered alcoholic, sober since March 3rd, 2004. Summer, thank you so much for that wonderful introduction. Just really hit my heart, and thank you. I do try to live this in my life today, and I definitely I definitely suffered because throughout my sobriety, I did not. There was a long period of time where I thought steps 10 and 11 were just extra credit. They were bonus. If I could get to them, I could get to them. If I couldn't, whatever, I could just do a giant inventory later on in life. And I always wondered why my sobriety looked like this roller coaster ride, just on these really big highs, ups and downs. And so it's just been, the last 2 years where I've really started to practice step 10 on a regular basis. And I know Ryan just said to get into that paragraph. However, there's a little bit before that I wanted to touch on too. So he had brought up step 3, and in step 3, we make a decision to turn our will and our life over to the care of God as we understand him. And at the top of page 63 are the third step promises. And in there, it says, when we sincerely took such a position. So the position is already after the decision. The decision is, I'm gonna turn my will and my life over to God as I understand him. However, I need to know what that is. So I need to go through 4, 5, 6, and then 7 is where I'm actually turning that will over. So if I sincerely take such a position to continue on, all sorts of remarkable things followed. Then it says a little bit further down, he provided what we needed if we kept close to him and performed his work well. And so, in this book, there's a lot of conditions. There's a lot of things where these things will come true if we do them. And so to keep close to him is steps 10 and 11. That's how we stay close to our higher powers. That's how we build a relationship. That's how we continue on with this relationship and stay in fit spiritual condition. If Ryan is my partner, he's my husband. If I only talk to Ryan once a month, I wouldn't have the connection with him that I do today. So the same is with any other relationship in my life, and my higher power, my God, is the most important relationship in my life. So why was I only going to God once a month, once every 3 months, when my back's up against the wall? He provided what we needed if we kept close to him and performed his work well. So that takes us over to, this paragraph that Ryan wanted me to get into of step 10. Um, so step 10 talks about, it's on page 84. If anyone out there is following along with us in the book, suggests we continue to take personal inventory and continue to set right any new mistakes as we go along. We vigorously commence this way of living as we cleaned up the past. So unlike some of the other steps, we can't do 4 until we've done 3. We can't do 5 until we've done 4. We can't do 6 until we've done 5. So unlike that, this is talking about we're going to get into step 10 as we're cleaning up the past. As we're working step 9, we're not going to sit and wait till we're fully done with all of our amends. We're not going to wait, years or months until everybody on our amends list has agreed to see us, sit down with us. No, we commence this way of life as we clean up the past. So we get right into this. We we have entered the world of the spirit. Our next function is to grow in understanding and effectiveness. Oftentimes, I hear this step and 11 talked about the maintenance steps. And when I'm thinking maintenance, I'm thinking of keeping something maintained as it is. In good working condition, but as it is. And what this is telling me is I'm not maintaining, I'm growing. I need to grow. My understanding of my higher power is different than it was 3 years ago. My understanding 3 years ago of my higher power was different than when I first walked into the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous. And if somebody's higher power is still the same as when they walked into the rooms of Alcoholics, and not the same, but if their relationship with that higher power is still the same as when they first walked into the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous, and 10 years later, there's something going on there. The growth is not happening, and there needs to be that continued growth. It talks about this is not an overnight matter. I'm an alcoholic. I'm black and white. Like I want it all or I want nothing. That's where I live. I live on both sides of the spectrum. I don't live in the grays. In and of myself, I don't live in gray. And so this is telling me that I'm not going to have everything from this book right at once. This is a continual spectrum of growth. I need to continue to grow with my higher power, which lets me know that I'm going to make mistakes. I'm going to make mistakes. And it talks about in this paragraph, I don't want to dwell on the self-pity. I'm going to make mistakes. And that is such it. I've learned that my mistakes are what brings me closer. It brings me closer to my higher power. I'm able to turn back to my higher power and say, I'm still fallible. I'm still human. I'm still a drunk. I'm still just one of many. And you are God. I am not. And so those mistakes that I make are things that I'm going to continue throughout my sobriety and throughout my life. And I need to continue to grow in that. So it talks about how we do that. We continue to watch. So it says we watch. We watch for 4 things. We watch for selfishness. We watch for dishonesty. We will watch for resentment and fear. Oftentimes I'm blind to these things. Watch is it's a verb. So that means there's action there. I can't just keep walking around my day blind, thinking, asleep, thinking I'm awake. I can't just, barrel through life like the tornado it talks about in step 9. I have to keep my eyes open. I need to, everyone, and Ryan talks about how when he's at a stop sign or a stoplight, him and some of his sponsees take that moment to connect with God. Those are moments where I can also take to pause, to take a look. Am I being selfish? Am I being dishonest? Am I living in resentment and fear? I can take those moments and stop during my day and take that in. Oftentimes though, I'm not that proactive. Oftentimes I am up against a wall. I'm already angry. I'm already frustrated. I'm already, into self, and I'm feeling it. And so when I'm starting to feel those things, that is also another, that's a cue, that's a cue for me to stop, take a look, watch for these things. Just a quick story. I was at the grocery store. I got into my head. Something didn't actually happen. It was totally made up in my head. And I got really angry at somebody. Um, they did nothing, but I had projected my thoughts onto them, and I became really angry to the point where I'm walking around the produce section just fuming, getting angrier and angrier, as I'm picking out apples, as I'm looking through the lettuce. Like, I'm just becoming so angry. And I'm starting to give the little old ladies who were shopping at the time dirty looks, and I'm getting mad at people for their shopping carts being in the way. And I started to recognize that, I'm awake today. I'm awake to my selfishness today. And so I started to recognize how I was just barreling through this grocery store, and just being like this tornado in these poor people's lives who don't even know me. And I took myself aside, to um, one of the more empty aisles, and I realized this, and I did a 10th step right there in the grocery store. As Ryan was talking about, the tractor trailer was coming down the road, and I had to get out of the way. And so I did, and I did a 10th step, and I reached out to my sponsor, and she didn't answer the phone. And I had asked God to remove these feelings for me. And I reached out to one of my other close friends who's in this program, who was able to help me see that selfishness. And thankfully, I didn't actually run over the toes of anybody, so I did not have to make amends. However, I was able to be relieved of those feelings. I was able to get through shopping. I was able to be helpful to some other people throughout the shopping experience. And that's what it was about. That's what it's about. Um, and so when these crop up, we ask God at once to remove them. We ask God to remove them before we call someone. Before we call someone, my real reliance today is upon God, is upon my higher power. It's not on my sponsor. It's not on people about me. They point me in the right direction. They sure help me see things that I can't see myself, but I need to put God first. And if my real reliance is on God, I need to put that first. And so I ask God to remove it at once. Then we discuss them with someone immediately. Sometimes that's not possible. Sometimes it's impossible to get somebody on the phone at once. But I do make sure that I discuss it with somebody as soon as I can. And then I um I make amends quickly if I've harmed anyone, and then I resolutely turn my thoughts to someone I can help. So by turning my thoughts to someone I can help, I stop putting that energy into this thought. I tell you to stop thinking about the elephant in the room. All you're going to do is think about the elephant in the room. If I tell you, think about this other thing, there may be a chance that you might stop thinking about the elephant in the room. And so I can stop the constant wheel that's going on around this anger, or this fear, or this self-pity, or this selfishness that's going on. And I can stop that wheel, and I can start to fit myself, and to be of maximum service to my higher power and those people about me. Because the selfishness and self-centeredness, as Ryan had talked about, that's the root of my alcoholism, and that's what's going to kill me. What's going to take me out, and that's what's going to kill me. And so I constantly have to start putting the thoughts of others before myself. And I'll tag back him in.
All right. Man, good stuff. um, I was just thinking as Risa was talking, like, this step is so life changing, and we really get one paragraph of, not even really half a paragraph of instructions. It's that simple. It's really just that simple. And we have a small amount of instructions here. I just want to touch on a couple things in this paragraph there. Um, we have entered the world of the spirit. That sounds like a beautiful promise right there. And it just seems like at this point, we experienced the 9 step promises, and now we've just begun to enter the world of the spirit. These 9 step promises, you know, that's a spiritual awakening. That's what a spiritual awakening looks like. But this 10th step we're talking about here, this is about being spiritually alert. And I really, really had that wrong. I'm going to talk briefly about how wrong I had this step. So this was my idea of the 10th step. It was basically like I would go out in the world and live my life, and I would step on someone's toes. I would either say something or whatever it was. I mean, I was sober, so I wasn't like getting in fist fights necessarily, or major road rage incidents or anything like that. But I could still piss people off. And then I would see, some time would go by, an hour, a couple, whatever, a little time would go by, and I could see that I angered somebody. So I would say, oh, I guess the right thing to do is to call them and apologize and make it right. And then I would call my sponsor and tell him that I did it and ask God to remove it. And, that was the kind of, it was like, I thought it was like this reactionary thing. I thought the 10 step was like reactionary because I missed the major word here. The major word is watch. The way I read this for literally a decade was continue to wait for selfishness, dishonesty, resentment, and fear. When these creep up, we ask God at once to remove them. So that's what I was doing. I was waiting. I was hanging out, running the show, waiting for this stuff to happen. And then I was reacting. But that word watch is so powerful. I mean, you can work with that word watch. I've been doing it for maybe a month now or something, just working with that word as I'm out in the world, living my life with the family, at work, whatever I'm doing. It's all about watching and trying to pay attention and be awake to what's going on. I started doing this more active lately for smaller things. It says we watch for selfishness, dishonesty, resentment, and fear. Basically what that means is anytime I'm disturbed, I'm going to look at anytime I'm disturbed, and then I'm going to follow these clear-cut directions. Ask God when these crop up, not if, when these crop up. It gives me permission to make mistakes. So when these crop up, I ask God at once to remove them, discuss them with someone immediately, which isn't ideal for everybody. I have the kind of job, I'm a truck driver. I have the kind of job where, like, after I finish a stop, for 5 minutes or whatever, I can make a call. And I got a handful of guys that are current in their work and practicing this work that I can call. My first call is to my sponsor. He's not always available. So I got a couple other people I can call. So as close to immediately as I can get. We're kind of big book nerds. I take this stuff so literally. I'll admit, I take this stuff so literally. Make amends quickly if we've harmed anyone. I hate that. I try so hard to avoid making any amends. And this is the other word I missed. Then we resolutely turn our thoughts to someone we could help. What I used to think was, okay, I asked God to remove it. I called my sponsor and told on myself. I apologized if I had to. And then I thought, like, well, I can't help anyone right now. I'm at work, but I'm meeting with a sponsee on the weekend. The weekend coming up, I'm meeting with a guy and we're going to do some work. So I'll be helpful then. That's not what it says, though. It's just saying we turn our thoughts to someone we can help. So that's all I got to do. I got to, so for example, if I am going to do step work with somebody over the weekend, I can say, oh, we're going to do the sixth and seventh step and get into our 8th step. I can start to think, how can I be helpful? How can I be the best messenger I can for this guy? So I'm thinking of how I can be most helpful. It doesn't always have to be an alcoholic, though. How can I be helpful in real life, in the moment? Even if I can't do it, how can I turn my thoughts to how I can be helpful? So there's 2 huge words that I totally missed for so long: watch and thoughts. And I think, the steps 10 and 11 really do focus a lot on our thought life. And that's what's so beautiful about this program. It really will meet me wherever I am. the 10th step was fine the way I did interpret it. That's where I was at, and now I'm hopefully growing and growing spiritually. And the 10 steps meaning more to me now, I guess. One more thing, that we've entered the world of the spirit, it's just beautiful. I think in the second step, it says we've commenced spiritual growth. So that's cool. We're just beginning. And then I think in the fifth step, it tells us we've begun to have a spiritual experience. And then by the time we get to this 10th step, we've entered the world of the spirit. So it's just beautiful here. The last thing here, the last sentence, so powerful in this paragraph here: love and tolerance of others is our code. And not easy, not natural for me at all, but that's what I can rely on God for. That's what my morning prayers often look like. God, how can I show love and tolerance to whoever crossed my path today? And it's not always easy, and I'm not perfect at it, for sure, guaranteed. Get into the promises here. How we doing on time? Oh, we got a little time. All right. We've ceased fighting anything or anyone, even alcohol. I mean, I remember the moment. I can remember the moment we saw that. It was like, I'll speak for me here. I'm talking. I think Risa was the same way. I read this for years that says we have ceased fighting alcohol. That's what I thought, because it goes on to talk about how we're free from alcohol. It goes on to talk about that. So, but I never saw that we've ceased fighting anything or anyone, even alcohol. So it's like, that's cool, but like, I'm not fighting anymore. I've ceased fighting anything or anyone. Now, I'm not perfect at this, and that's not always how it looks, but it's so cool that it says that there: cease fighting anything or anyone, even alcohol. For by this time, sanity will have returned. I'm seldom interested in liquor. If tempted, I recoil from it as from a hot flame. I react sanely and normally, and I find this has happened automatically. We'll see how our new attitude toward liquor has been given us without any thought or effort on our part. It just comes. That is the miracle of it. We are not fighting it, neither are we avoiding temptation. We feel as though we've been placed in a position of neutrality, safe and protected. We have not even sworn off. Instead, the problem has been removed. Folks, that's what it looks like to be a recovered alcoholic. When I come to Alcoholics Anonymous and I am just a mess. I am a mess. I cannot stop drinking when I start. I cannot stay stopped. And I'm in this kind of alcoholic cycle of drinking myself to death, quitting drinking, and starting again. You know what I'm saying? And basically, how beautiful is our program that by the time I get here, by the time I've made some amends, all of a sudden, the problem has been removed. Now, there's lots of other problems. Don't worry. There's tons of other problems for life. You know what I'm saying? But alcohol really, really has not been one for me for 15 years now. It really hasn't. And, this has really been true for me. If the thought comes of drinking, which might randomly pop in my head, I recoil like from a hot flame. That is a sane reaction to somebody allergic to alcohol to have when I consider putting it back into my body. I mean, it's just the problem's removed. It's so beautiful. I tried so hard before Alcoholics Anonymous. I tried so hard to quit and stay quit, and it was such a fight, such a grind every day. It was just like, and I was able to put a couple days or weeks, sometimes even months together, you know what I'm saying? But it was just so miserable, such a grind. It was just absolute willpower, white knuckle in it all the way. And it was just such a miserable thing. And here it says, we're not fighting it. I'm not even avoiding temptation. I never avoid places where there's drinking because I'm not fazed by it, and there's just beautiful promises. I mean, there's beautiful promises throughout this book, and the 10 step ones always just kind of jump out at me there. We're neither cocky nor are we afraid. That is our experience. That is how we react, so long as we keep in fit spiritual condition. So we get a little warning there. So it's going to stay this way as long as I keep in fit spiritual condition. And it's going to talk about it's easy to let up on the spiritual program of action and rest on our laurels. It's easy to let up on the spiritual program of action. So that must mean it's difficult to not let up on the spiritual program of action. And, these are disciplines. These are spiritual disciplines that I take. It doesn't matter how I feel. It doesn't matter, if I feel like doing this or what mood I'm in or anything like that. It just basically means I got to do it. And that's the bottom line. So it's not always easy. I don't feel like calling my sponsor for a 10 step. I don't feel like doing my nightly review, but we do it. I mean, that's it. And it's not always easy. We're headed for trouble if we do, for alcohol is a subtle foe. We're not cured of alcoholism. What we really have is a daily reprieve contingent on the maintenance of our spiritual condition. Let me just make this point, then I'm gonna turn it back to Risa. So this is fascinating. They're not talking about drinking here. They're not talking about, I don't want to be too controversial here, but they're not really talking about not drinking a day at a time. They're telling us we're not cured of alcoholism. Okay, that's different from drinking. I have alcoholism and I'm selfish and self-centered. My troubles are of my own making. So I have that alcoholism and I get a daily reprieve from that illness. Okay, but it's contingent on the maintenance of my spiritual condition. It doesn't even say that, it's contingent on my spiritual condition, because I really have no idea what my spiritual condition is at any time. I can't trust my own motives and I can't judge myself like that. But maintaining my spiritual condition, Risa talked about that, maintaining. And how do I maintain my spiritual condition? There's only one way, is to grow, to keep moving forward, more action, keep moving forward. That's all I got.
So real quick, one of the notes I have is, when with that, and we've ceased fighting anything or anyone, even alcohol, as it talks about in the book, alcohol is just a symptom, as Ryan just talked about with alcoholism, alcohol is just a symptom. And so I have down here that the more I practice, I'm not bound to how others act or feel. I can better fit myself to God's will. So the more I'm practicing this step, the more that I'm practicing step 11, is the more I do that, the more I'm not bound by this selfishness and self-centeredness. I don't need you to follow the scripts that I have for you in my head. I don't need you to do those things, because I'm not as focused on you as I am on God. Ryan talks about the promises. I'm going to go to, it is easy to let up on the spiritual program of action and rest on our laurels. What we really have is a daily reprieve contingent on the maintenance of our spiritual condition. Every day is a day when we must carry the vision of God's will into our activities. And this is where I did not follow these directions. What happened, what I thought, and rest on our laurels talks about, so laurels means accomplishments and good deeds. And the saying of resting on my laurels means that I cannot rely on yesterday's growth. So on a Sunday, I have my home group. Okay. And once a month on Sundays, we also go to a treatment commitment. And sometimes I schedule to work with sponsees. So my Sundays are, I have my home group. I'm of service at my group. I go and I talk with my sponsee or two sponsees about step work. And then I go and I do this treatment facility meeting, and in the morning and at night I'm praying, I'm meditating, I'm doing inventory. And for me, what it used to be like was, okay, that's good for the rest of the week. Like that's good for the rest of the week. I don't need to do any more. It's like I went to a buffet and I filled myself to the point where I want to throw up. I'm so full, thinking that for the rest of the week, I don't have to eat for the rest of the week. And that's not what this is saying. This is saying that every single day I must carry the vision of God's will. And so that doesn't say every single day I need to go to a meeting. I don't need to go to a meeting to be able to carry God's will into my life. I don't need to go to a meeting every single day to practice what this book is telling me to practice and to do Alcoholics Anonymous. However, every day I do need to show up. I need to show up as a woman in recovery. I need to show up when somebody is reaching out the hand of AA for help. I need to show up when there's people around me who need from me. I need to show up in the roles that God has assigned me, as it talks about in the fear inventory. I need to show up. I need to show up, and I need and the thing is in and of myself, I cannot do that. I can't. I wake up every morning thinking, okay, today is going to be the day where I am going to be patient and loving to my children. And as soon as I get out of my room and they're screaming at each other, it goes out the window, because that's who I am. In and of myself, I can't do these things. In and of myself, I can't be rid of my defects of character. In and of myself, I cannot be rid of the selfishness and self-centeredness. And so here we have an amazing step that takes me to God every single time, because I can't do it on my own. I can't do it on my own. And what that looked like is at 16 years sober, I was going to drink again. I not doing these steps, thinking that they weren't something I needed to do every day, thinking that I could get away with just doing them once in a while, led me to become an empty vessel of somebody who was not grateful for anything. I wasn't grateful for AA. I wasn't grateful for my family. I wasn't grateful for any of the things I had. I wanted to trash it all because I was done. I was done living the life I was living, and I just wanted to drink again because I stopped having that relationship with God. I stopped growing that relationship with God. And then I just want to say, it talks about there's this 10-step prayer. How can I best serve thee? Thy will, not mine, be done. These are thoughts which must go with us constantly. We can exercise our willpower along this line all we wish. It is the proper use of the will. At the beginning of this book, I learned that I was powerless over alcohol, that my willpower wasn't going to get me sober. I could not get sober on my own willpower. I tried by what it says up at the top. I was fighting it. I was avoiding temptation. I was swearing off. That stuff was my willpower. That was not going to keep me sober. However, then this book in We Agnostic says, how can I find a power? How can I find that power? So here in step 10, I found that power. I found that power. And so I am allowed to meet God's will with my own will. As long as I am practicing this and I continue to watch for the selfishness, self-centeredness, the dishonesty, resentments, and fear, as long as I'm watching for those, I am able to match my will with God's will. And in that case, I can start to use my will. God gave us brains to use. I can't just walk out and be like, oh, I'm going to just walk along and hopefully God smacks me with what I'm supposed to do. That's not how it works, and so this step is something that I need to practice daily. Absolutely. Every single day, I wake up to a brand new day, and I need to start following these directions on a daily basis. And here in this last paragraph of step 10, it says, if we have carefully followed directions, we have begun to sense the flow of his spirit into us. To some extent, we have become God conscious. We have begun to develop this vital sixth sense, but we must go further, and that means more action. And so again, this is telling me I am not done. I have just begun this journey. I am not done. I'll pass it over to Ryan.
Yeah, thank you. Did a great job with that line. Every day is a day we must carry the vision of God's will into all our activities. I do not get a day off. I do not get a day off every day. And I like how I use the word vision. And I think I need to be awake and alert to do that, to carry the vision of God's will into all our activities. What Risa just touched on there, this last paragraph, if we have carefully followed directions, we have begun to sense the flow of his spirit into us. To some extent, we have become God conscious. We have begun to develop this vital sixth sense. I love that. Great topic for a meeting, by the way, if you want. Vital sixth sense. See how that goes. Risa and I were in a park. What was that, last weekend? We went on a hike and we were in a park, and there was a creek, not quite a river, but a creek, and it was so beautiful. We could hear the water and stuff, and we just got quiet and sat for a few minutes, just quiet with our eyes closed, listening to it. And then we were pointing out that, like, with our eyes closed, we could hear, the water so much easier. My sense of hearing, it was increased tremendously with my eyes being closed. And then we tried it the other way. It didn't work so good. But whatever, so it's like to increase this sixth sense, it's like almost need to, that's the idea of getting quiet and dulling my other senses, basically, so I can embrace this vital sixth sense that's part of my life now. And yeah, this, I'll just wrap up by saying this 10, 11, and 12, these are our instructions every day for the rest of our lives. And if I can practice this and live in this, these 10-step promises will stay true for me. Now, as anybody, my spiritual fitness is not judged by if I fall off the beam, if I get off track. We all do. Everybody does. I mean, that's just how it goes, right? I mean, that's just the nature of it. But how quickly do I get back on? How quickly do I start doing the work again? And I got to say, the more this 10th step, and 11th, this kind of stuff, the more I do it, the more I love it, the more I love recovery. I love being alive and sober. And I mean, I like the effect it produces. Doing this work, I like the effect it produces. Writing inventory, I mean, I love it. I never thought I would say that, really, but it's just, I need to continue to write inventory. I need to continue to do this stuff. I need that humility. I will never not need that humility, no matter how far away I am from a drink or how, close I feel to God at any given moment. I will always need that humility, and it's so important. And it's so cool. We got these instructions to show us how to do that. Nowhere in this book does it tell you, now it's time to stop drinking. Don't stop drinking now. It doesn't say that. It just gives us instructions of how to build this relationship to our Creator, how to build and maintain and grow a relationship with God. And that's the secret to it all. It really is. To me, that's what it's all about. My relationship with God. That's what all this stuff's about. And the more that I can work on that and grow with that, the more free I am, the more beautiful it is. So that's all I got on the 10th step. You got anything else?
I just want to quickly close with, I just talked about how at 16 years sober, I wanted to drink and I was done with my life and everything. Well, I got back into the book of Alcoholics Anonymous. I started following the directions as they're outlined in the big book. I started practicing those in my life. And I can tell you today, I have a life beyond my wildest dreams, and nothing else has changed. I still have the same kids. I still have the same husband. I still have the same exact life I had 3 years ago, and nothing has changed other than my relationship with God. And that is the promise. That is the hope. That is the freedom that this program, this book, these directions promise you, as long as you follow them as they're written in the big book. Thank you.
Thank